To all who come to this happy podcast, welcome to FreshBaked a happy place where each week we combine imagination with our experience to discuss, challenge, and explore all things Disneyland. I am Ron Berner, and with me as always, or there wouldn't be a show, Mr. Fresh Baked himself, the indelible David Erickson.
What's up, Fresh Baked?
And this is the Fresh Baked Presents podcast, episode 14. Thanks for joining us, where today we explore Mickey's Toontown, both today and tomorrow. We reach into the mailbag to discuss your questions and, of course, our 5 things Disneyland. David, happy daylight savings time. How are you?
I'm doing good. And I'm not mad at daylight savings. I kind of like the night times coming in a little early for a minute.
Yeah, I don't mind it. Django, my 11-month-old golden retriever, is not understanding the concept. He still thinks the times of when he does his foods and all his other things are the old time zone.
He'll assimilate soon.
Yeah, it will. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm living the dream.
Sweet.
Living the dream. Today I wanted to get into, I want to explore Toontown and frankly all of its possibilities. Obviously, we have touched on Tomorrowland, Disneyland Forward, and even the backlot. And in many, many ways, Toontown is right in line with all of those things.
Yeah, Toontown is basically the backlot with just a little bit more to do.
It really is, and the reason that I find this conversation so interesting is Disney has told us in no uncertain terms that Toontown is here to stay, and not only is it here to stay, that they're adding to it, obviously, with the 2023 opening, hopefully, of Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. And with that...
I do that every time. Don't worry about it. I do that every time.
It's so funny because we're going to get into calling things incorrectly later in today's show. But I do think... I guess I was going to ask you how you feel about Toontown right now. Definitely needs TLC. I think that's pretty much across the board. People do think that. But with the addition of Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway... do you think that the rest of the land is going to get the TLC, or what do you foresee?
Well, it's interesting because that is the term that most people use when they talk about what Toontown needs. It's always TLC, which I find curious because, I mean, it's true that Toontown does need TLC. It needs more than that. It needs more than touches, okay? It just needs more,
right? Well,
Ron.
I think TLC is also means the same as eventually. It's just a nice ambiguous way to talk about a large thing.
Well, it doesn't need to comb its hair or press its suit. Toontown needs a new suit.
That is
okay. It needs a new haircut. It doesn't. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
I think I say that maybe it's coming from, maybe I'm biased or whatever. I've got. I see things through the tunnel vision, which is something that I caution lots of people to do. They try to see things from a broader perspective if you can. But my worldview of Toontown says this is not the land for me. It's not the land for me. I don't like Toontown, but it's not made for me. It isn't.
That's just.
But then you can say the same thing about Fantasyland. I love Fantasyland. I love the dark rides in Fantasyland. I even love Dumbo and Casey and Carousel and all that. Small World. But that's for kids, people would say. Toontown is for kids, people would say. But I still, knowing that, it needs something, in my opinion, for me as a guest, it needs something more than just, for it to comb its hair, as I said. It needs more than TLC, and it needs Mickey's Runaway Railway, bad.
It does. It does. Mickey's Runaway. And that is exactly why I think we talked about this on Fresh Baked proper a few years ago.
Sure.
I distinctly remember, and in my head, and this is where over time, I can't say the word, but naivete, my being naive may be playing a role here. In my mind, I can't reconcile the notion that they're going to bring in that attraction and it's going to obviously reinvigorate energy into the land, and in other words, people are going to come. if I have guests coming to my house, I am cleaning up and picking up and trying to present myself in the
Sure.
best way I can. So in my mind, I can't imagine why they would do such a launch. It's not until 2023 when presumably nothing else is going to, and certainly not Tomorrowland or Disneyland Forward.
Nope.
So, or the backlot for that matter. So it seems to me that they would absolutely have something in store that we haven't even heard about yet. But that, what could that be other than TLC? I mean, I feel like every inch of that thing should be painted and polished. I know that's not a lot, but that's something, as well as new foliage and hopefully additional, merchandising shops. I mean, it's not necessarily a shoppy area.
Well, you make a great point, because one of the casualties of Runaway Railway is the only gift shop in the land. So, sorry about it. I don't know what okay. Yeah, they are doing. I already know of a few projects of things that they're working on. Obviously, we can see that they're working on the entrance to Toontown now. That's a TLC project. I know that they've already refurbished one of the cars. Those concrete cars that people take pictures on. They've already refurbished one of those. They are refurbishing another car, and the trolley, the Jolly Trolley train is getting refurbished. I think whether or not it's going to operate isn't. Boy, wouldn't that be? That's one of the things that I would love to see happen, is the Jolly Trolley.
I agree. That's
fingers crossed on that, but I don't know. So we know that's happening. But yeah, man, like there's just way too much concrete and not enough foliage, as you suggested. That's one of the things that I really want. I want that place to feel lived in. That's one of the things that it's missing is texture, like character, personality, something that feels organic. And not just concrete and paint.
Yeah, and another thing that I just thought of as you were speaking, and I'm just walking through the land in my own head. Another interesting thing is in the summertime, it is abnormally hot.
Yes,
different than anywhere else in the park, for whatever part of it being the construction of it and the no coverage, things of that nature. But
there's no coverage.
There's no breeze. There is just nothing. Hopefully, just by the nature of a gigantic show building being built, somehow that redirects the flow, airway flow.
Maybe, I don't know. We would have felt that already. That building's been up.
That's true.
We would notice that already. But part of the reason why it feels that way is because of the lack of organic elements. Because of all the concrete. It just bakes. Everything just bakes out there in the sun.
It is.
That's why they have to repaint it every few years, because the color fades on all that paint because of the sun.
Yeah, it is interesting that you did bring up some things. I was going to try to persuade you to give us any whispers that you may have heard, but you did offer some there. And I agree with you that I think part of it, I mean, there was I always call it Sunset, Project Stardust in many ways, how they mentioned, we're going to just start touching things up and cleaning things up. It feels like all of Disneyland in a weird way is kind of under on the operating table. Like it's like a big Band-Aid all over the entire park in many different areas. And it feels like it's more Project Stardust now than it was when it was Project Stardust in many ways. But the Toontown element that I think is kind of leads you to at least hope, maybe not believe, but hope that there's going to be changes making. So the entrance that you pointed out, that's taking place. A couple things that they are doing on the inside. Roger Rabbit's cartoon spin. That I guess the new
storyline.
The new storyline. I guess, I mean, part of that was to be politically correct, and I commend him for that. But also, it still is new, and still is getting a little TLC, for lack of a better word. Yeah. But additionally, even in that area, the Fantasyland Theater. So, I mean, I don't know what that. You may be able to shed some light on what's going on back there.
Well, I don't know anything, but it's funny. I was writing the script today before this podcast about for the construction video, and I had some comments about the Fantasyland Theater, because the sign is still under scrim. We don't know what they're doing, why that is. It's a strange thing, whatever it is that they're doing to the sign, because there is no show. There's no why even bother at this point? Why even bother doing anything at all unless they just want to cover it up so people don't talk about it? I don't know. But if you were to go down and look at the Fantasyland Theater, the Mickey and the Magical Map Theater, you would see that it is untouched. Untouched.
Is that right?
The paint buckets are still there. The Sorcerer Mickey logo thing is still at the top of the stage, which tells me there are no plans, zero plans for anything. Magical Map is done. It's closed permanently as of, it was shut down during COVID, and it's not coming back. I mean, I suppose we've said that about other things that did eventually come back. Electrical Parade, but
yes,
it could be another but there's no plans. Nothing. They have that is just another thing that is empty at Disneyland. God, Ronnie, there is so much empty at Disneyland right now.
Oh, I know.
Toontown. Look at Toontown.
Yep.
Goofy's Playhouse. The Donald Duck's boat. You can't go into Mickey's house. You can't go into Minnie's house. You can go up the treehouse. Congratulations. You can't go into what used to be the ball pit. There's so much you can't do in Toontown. It's depressing. And I sure hope they have some kind of plan for, Goofy's house and Donald's boat and all that, because it ain't right. It ain't right now.
Yeah, I agree. I was just in there this past weekend and walking around and just hoping and trying to be inspired by what could be. In theory, I like the land. I like the idea of human beings.
Well, I think you went 2020 2010 Toontown, not the present day, because of the way things used to be with the ball pit and the bounce house and all that stuff. I mean, yeah, there was even Donald's boat had more to do than it does today, or even did in 2019.
It's funny because Toontown reminds me of the kids' toys when they're age-appropriate toys, right? So if you're 3 years old, you buy the Donald's boat. Like, you buy the thing that you can't do anything with and you can't put it in your mouth. It's it's like, that's what Toontown really is. It's like the real young floaty Donald's boat kind of thing. I do think that some improvements that can be made are, and this goes back to cast members and how many employees Disney's going to have, but I really wish it was absolutely inundated with characters. Not only interacting with guests, but interacting with each other. And I know
that would be great.
That would be so cool. It would add life to the land in a way that is desperately needed. And that's also something I'm holding out hope for, because, if ever a land needed lots and lots of characters, I would think that it's Toontown, especially when the demographic that they're trying to appeal to is the young kids. So, to your point about adults, it's really just a place to take your kids, and that's maybe until Mickey's.
I have no reason to be at Toontown. I'm not a big fan of Roger Rabbit as an attraction, and that would be the only reason why an adult would go there.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I take that back. I would rather go on Gadget's Go Coaster than Roger Rabbit. But I have no reason really to go to Toontown. That's why you need Runaway Railway there, because that's an adult attraction.
It is. I am a big fan of Gadget's Go Coaster. Me and Champ always talk about it. Like, he always makes the joke, it's the shortest roller coaster ever. And I'm like, it is, but man, is it a great little coaster.
For 30 seconds, it's great.
It reminded me of the conversation we had last week about what would you want in your backyard. And then when I went on that, I'm like, how cool would this be?
Yeah, I know, right? You could actually fit that in your backyard.
Right. And then you really could. And then I went to DCA and I was like, I answered it all wrong. Pixar Pal Around. How did I not pick that thing? You talk about an attraction in your backyard. But the Toontown adult factor is certainly a problem that's never going away. I guess Mickey and Minnie's will get you back there. And I'm certainly going to go. I go as it is. Unlike you, I do.
Oh, you mean the Runaway Railway, Mickey and Minnie's? I thought you meant their house.
No. Their house is, I told myself I'll never go to that again, because I'm so against you telling me something's going to take 20 minutes and it takes 90 minutes, things like that. I think getting a picture with Mickey and meeting Mickey in his house, I love the screenings that they do on the inside. Yeah. But I've probably done it 5 times in the last, several years. And it has always taken 3 times the amount of time.
It takes forever. It really does. It's a slog. It's a slog.
But I do think that there is some hope for it for the whole entire land, and I like to think that in addition to I mean, there's no space to put anything, so they can't do anything about the food, and they can't do anything about the shop because, as you said, the one that they had is gone.
I hope they got a plan. I hope they got a plan.
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose they didn't take the whole shop. Some of it's still there, but still, it wasn't like it was a really big shop. The Gag Factory wasn't big, and they lost half of it, at least. At least.
I don't know what they have in, like, I don't know what the end product is supposed, like, what's going to remain. I mean, you know what I mean?
Right, yeah, neither do I. I mean, all I know is that the first part of that walkthrough is going to be sort of the museum-y part. But, yeah, does that consume all of the Gag Factory? I don't know. But it at least half is what I'm saying, because we can see the carcass of the old, the exit half of that building is gone, obviously. So unless they rebuild it as something else with gifts in it, but it sure seems sketchy for a gift shop in that area, and it's not like they have a lot of space to play with. No. To build something new, another gift shop. I mean, unless they, take over part of the, the little food areas, the food, dining locations, which are not great either. No. It's a hot dog, a really weird pizza, and some ice cream, and that's it, right?
Yeah, that is literally it. There's 3. But that's true. They don't need 3. I mean, I guess they kind of do because, actually, I guess they kind of do if you want to have options, unless you combine the hot dog and pizza stand together.
Well, yeah. I mean, you can't have less food than they have there already.
Well, what I meant to say with that had to do with the space. If they wanted to have a shop in there, they could always get by with merchandise with little, things, little, like in the entryway to the railway. If they have, I'm sure they're going to have things for sale. Well, maybe not. I take that back entirely. Why would they do that?
I just had a thought about what their plans might be. Now, this isn't. I've heard some small rumors, but it's formulated something in my mind. So this is breaking for all of you folks listening to this podcast.
I'm excited.
The one tiny rumor that I heard was that they may exit through Mickey's house, Runaway Railway. I've also heard that because I'm friends with Mickey, right? Friends with Mickey who lives in Mickey's house.
He does.
And Mickey told me that there's no current plan to open up Mickey's house. There's no timeline for that, to do that whole walking through the house thing that you don't like. There's no current plan for returning that, even under improved COVID conditions. That's not a problem anymore. You can be inside. So the fact that it's not open right now suggests that they have maybe another plan for Mickey's house. Mickey's house, exiting is the exit for Runaway Railway and an exit through the gift shop.
Well, that's exactly what I was just going to say. Is like so many of their other attractions, when you're exiting through a building, it is a gift shop, and that kind of solves that problem in a way. And it also brings so much more. Not that they need any more Mickey and Minnie merchandise, but there's certainly a new avenue for it because, I mean, incorporating Mickey and Minnie, it's Mickey's first attraction.
Yeah.
So that's
and you can
cool.
still meet Mickey in that house, by the way. There's still room to do that. You can still exit, meet Mickey, and then do some shopping.
Yeah, it's large. It's well, at least it's constructed large from the queue that you have to go through to get in there.
Right. No, they could. The gift shop would be all of that walking around business.
Right.
That before you get to you could probably keep the whole meeting area where you meet Mickey. You can keep that as constructed and just repurpose the actual house, the walk-through house, as a gift shop.
That is interesting, and that would make sense, I guess, because you obviously. The entrance is grand already, so you don't want to have that traffic like going against the grain. Also, I mean, it's a perfectly believable theory, and it seems to make sense in your mind's eye. Although I don't know what that whole. I mean, it's all going to be behind Clarabelle's and Daisy's.
Yep.
That's cool. That's a cool idea that seems to make perfect sense. The other things that the land could use. So the good things are. There's a joke everywhere. They've gone out of their way to have fun little nods to Mickey shorts through the years, and there's just so much pleasure in the subtle little jokes that you find, especially Goofy's, like the imprint in the pavement, like he missed his pool and jumping, diving, his body imprinted. There's fun little things all over the place. But what I also think that it lacks. So you alluded to it, like the trolley, the entertainment aspect outside of there's an attraction and there's the tree house. There's not a lot of entertainment outside of the two attractions.
No, the Jolly Trolley, if they were able to find a way, would change the energy in that land completely.
I do.
It would change, but that's a difficult thing. I am less than positive that could happen, just because it's such a small space, and the way the guests kind of walk around, it doesn't have defined walkways, defined areas for people to be and not be.
Right.
And we're so used to just being able to just try to imagine trying to negotiate the Jolly Trolley while you're trying to get to Mickey's house or something like that. And then it's going around the fountain. Not a lot of room around. Put the trolley around that fountain. It leaves a little bit of room just to the side for guests to walk around and be. I don't know. It would be a tough task to make that thing work, but it would be awesome if they could.
You're right. It really could. And it is a traffic jam. Maybe if they just put it on I mean, it's always better when it turns and goes around fountains. But if it just went straight back and forth, even that would be helpful.
Even that would be better than nothing. I agree. Yeah. Even that, and it doesn't have to. I don't know why they made it. I don't know if you've seen old footage of it, but the thing kind of wobbles. It's like this. It's intentional, but it's like, oh, I'm in a cart, whatever.
Oh,
it's like,
right.
Stop doing that. Just make it go. You know what I mean? Because that just complicates the machinery, the mechanics of it, and it makes it break down quicker. Just go forward, come it back, and just do your thing, and then you don't have to get cute.
No, that's true. Do you think that is funny though? Do you think that the park or that the land will have extended hours with Minnie and Mickey or Mickey and Minnie's?
They better. They better. I have to think that they've worked something out, but then how? I don't know, man. The reason why he's asking this, in case you're not aware, they launched the fireworks from Toontown. So it's difficult to have. This is one of the reasons why Disney's trying to rely less on fireworks today than they have in the past. More projections, less fireworks, because not only is it very expensive, but then it shuts down it shuts down Fantasyland, for a minute. Not all of Fantasyland, but like half of Fantasyland, the dark rides and all that. So hopefully, maybe they have found a way to launch those fireworks outside of the Toontown area or outside of any sort of fallout zone, because that's what they're worried about, is the fallout.
Right.
I have to believe that somebody thought about that.
For sure.
You know what I mean?
If I thought about it, somebody else thought about
right? And, that's one of the things that I often say is like, dude, I don't know how, none of us have any idea how hard it is to run a theme park. We can't even conceive of all the different variables that it takes to be able, it is an impossible task to run a theme park. So to think that you know better than they do, I doubtful.
Yep.
So I have to assume if they're going forward, they've got some sort of, because they don't want to close Runaway Railway at 7 p.m.
Not only that, but they want to open it at 8 as well.
Well, yeah, right. So, I mean, you can't build this fancy new shiny ride and then close it so that you can shoot some fireworks.
Yeah.
No.
And I know that already exists, but I do have big expectations. I don't know if that's the right word. I think fondly of what's about to come. I'm very much looking forward to it, and I think I'll enjoy it. I know you're not big on screens at all.
No.
I don't know. I guess I don't know what to expect necessarily, but
I still haven't seen a ride through.
Neither have I. I never do that, though.
No, I don't either. I always watch the ride-throughs. I watched Rise. I watched that.
Yeah.
But for some reason, I have chosen not to watch the ride-throughs of Runaway Railway.
Yeah.
I feel like
especially
I want
screens.
Yeah, well, I'm not worried about the screen part of it.
Well, I mean,
actually.
you don't want to see an attraction that's digital
on
a digital.
Yeah. Part of it is, because there are dimensions to this attraction, and it's not going to be present in a video. You're not going to get a sense of the depth of field, the depth of the dimensional aspects of this attraction, because it's supposed to be, there's layers.
100%.
Right? So that could be part of it. I just feel like I owe it to myself to see that thing, with my eyes first.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that even applies to fireworks and parades, for that matter. You just don't get the appreciation of viewing it on a video versus
Yeah.
seeing it or feeling it.
That was the Harmonious thing. I don't know if this is kind of a tangent, but Harmonious at Epcot. Apparently, the video does not do justice. A lot of people think Harmonious is the greatest show that Disney's ever created, even though it's those ridiculously those barges in the middle of the Epcot.
Right.
Are you familiar with how it looks?
Yeah,
Harmonious?
I've seen it. I saw the premiere or whatever they called it.
It looks like a giant monster in the middle of the bay there. But I mean, apparently it's a fantastic show, and you can't even do it justice by watching a video. You have to see it in person.
Yeah, I'm sure. I almost feel like that applies to almost anything, theme park or otherwise.
Yeah.
But I think, I don't know. I guess I'll close it. My thoughts on it is I am going to remain optimistic and naive, and I am going to think that by 2023, when that opens, it will be. I mean, what changes can they make outside of just shining it up? But I really like to believe that they're going to at least do all of that with a bigger pictures ahead. I just think they have to.
I'll give you one reason to be optimistic. It's taking 3 years.
Right. Oh, totally agree.
So the fact that it's taking that long, and by that I don't mean just building the attraction, but still, during those 3 years they're doing all these things. Normally, when they do a crappy reskin, it happens in 6 or 9 months.
They built Disneyland in less than that.
People like to make that.
I'm just saying. I'm agreeing with you because you know how I think in the marketing world whatsoever, they're never going to open Tomorrowland and Disney Forward together, or they're not going to do two massive things together because why would they? They want to get you back. They want to get you to your first time experience. All these things are promotional on purpose and scheduled with that in mind. So I completely agree with you to the point that it is quite the undertaking. It certainly isn't a 3-year project for a mega corporation to be able to pull off unless they choose for it to take that long. All right, David. Well, I think there's more to come with that. We'll see things slowly. They're not really saying anything, but they're slowly doing the Fantasyland Theater, whatever that means. It's kind of discouraging that you didn't see anything taking place whatsoever, and then nothing might happen. That is discouraging. That is interesting because I didn't know that. But they are doing not the attraction, but the entryway into it. There's little subtle things kind of happening within the land that may lead us to believe that there's more to come, but I guess we'll have to stay tuned.
I sure hope so.
I agree. This week in Disney history, David, lots of things open, some things closed. There was lots of weirdness happening, and one of my favorite topics ever may just be reappearing. In 1990, this week, The Rescuers Down Under opened in theaters. This film is notable, and I guess if you think about it, you would realize this, but until I read it, I'm like, oh, that's interesting. This is Disney's first official sequel of the animated films.
Is it?
I guess
really?
So. How interesting is that? And that took all the way till 1990, right? The Santa Claus opened in 1994. A Bug's Life premiered and opened at El Capitan, Disney-owned famous theater in Hollywood, California in 1998. And the following year in 99, Toy Story 2 premieres. 1940, Disney's third animated feature, Fantasia, premiered at New York's Broadway Theater, which was formerly known as The Colony, where Steamboat Willie debuted. The film introduces stereophonic sound via a special sound system called Fantasound, which literally vibrates the theater seats. The premiere was triumphant, but Fantasia would not be appreciated for many years until its re-release in the 70s finally made it a hit. Notable, of course, as this is Mickey Mouse's feature film debut in the 10.5-minute segment, The Sorcerer's Apprentice. So, David, we're going to play a little one-word association game. Like the Disney Rorschach, if you will. I tell you a film that premiered or opened in the theaters, which are these, and you say the first word that comes to your mind, and a one-word film review by David Erickson. And so, The Rescuers, Down Under. A Bug's Life.
Underrated.
The Santa Claus.
He is my Santa.
Right. Toy Story 2.
Overrated.
Fantasia.
I don't get it.
Yeah, I agree. It's funny because I would listen to Fantasia when sometimes you're in a loud office back in the days when when you had to go into an office, and I would put Fantasia on just to listen to the orchestra sound so I could focus because there's so much chaos going on I couldn't focus. So I've heard Fantasia so many times, over and over and over and over again. However, I have only seen it a few times, and I think The Sorcerer's Apprentice, I think most people agree, is amazing. I absolutely love that.
That's the reason to see that movie, yeah.
Yeah. Outside of that, though, I totally agree. In
Liz loves it, but I don't get it.
Yeah, I mean, it's part of the story, and it was ambitious as all get out at the time, so I appreciate him taking swings and missing. And he didn't miss, but he taken just biting off more than he could chew on some occasions, and that's also led us to all these other things.
Yeah.
The Goofy film, The Art of Skiing, was released on November 14th, 1941. In his typical clumsy fashion, Goofy demonstrates various skiing techniques with the aid of off-screen narration. Goofy goes to Sugar Bowl Ski Resort to learn how to ski. This resort was used because Walt had an interest in the ski area, to the extent that one of the peaks were later named Mount Disney after him. It is historical and has historical significance, as this is the first cartoon to use the famous Goofy holler. Following the first how-to cartoon, How to Ride a Horse, which was featured in The Reluctant Dragon, The Art of Skiing is the first standalone Goofy how-to short, and the series just snowballed from there. And here's what's interesting. I did not know that it had historical significance in being the first to use the famous Goofy holler. I would put this on the list for one very specific reason and one specific reason only, that in the topic at the top of the show I mentioned would be coming up later, and that's saying things incorrectly. For the life of me, I cannot call Goofy's Sky School Goofy's Sky School. I call it Goofy's Ski School because I remember... I call it Goofy Ski School, and I get corrected by Champ. I get corrected by whoever I'm with nonstop. To the point now where it's been such a joke for so many years that I literally now, when I'm about to say it, I'm like, Goofy's Sky School. But literally because I always remember him flopping around on skis, so I just can't help but say it. My brain struggles with that. So I was going to ask you.
That's wild.
Yeah, I mean, isn't there anything in the park that you commonly reference incorrectly? Maybe even on purpose, but just
I don't. I mean, well, the same thing that like the Runaway Railway thing. Redwood Creek Challenge is a struggle for me, although I did kind of get it that time. But I often
nailed it.
Yeah, I'll Kripke Redwood Creek often. If you know Kripke, then if you know, you know.
Yeah.
But no, I can't think of anything that I mean, it drives me nuts when I hear people say things like Autotopia. I want to jump off a bridge when I hear that.
I do call not Guardians. I do call Radiator Springs Racers Cars Racers on purpose. I mean, it's just, I don't know, like just things like that. Or The Little Mermaid. I don't ever call it Adventures Under the Sea.
No, I don't either. Yeah, Little Mermaid. It's Little Mermaid to me.
Right.
But it's not wrong.
No. I'm just saying. It just was a talking point because Goofy Ski School. It's funny that I did discover that that's where the famous Goofy holler came from. Also, Goofy related. I did not know this. 1992, the World According to Goofy Parade makes its last run after a 5 months stint in 92. In honor of Goofy's 60th birthday after he first appeared in 1932's Mickey's Revue. The parade contained floats showing the history of the world with Goofy-esque characters portraying the real ones. Goofy's appearance and personality evolved over time, and even his name changed from Dippy Dog to Goofy. In 1939, Goofy became a star with the release of Goofy and Wilbur, the first of 48 Goofy cartoons. But after the release of Goofy's Freeway Trouble in 1965, Goofy was rarely seen for 30 years, emerging only for a few guest appearances, such as The Prince and the Pauper in 1990. Then, finally, in 95, Goofy's star was reignited as he and his son Max became stars of their own delightful animated feature, A Goofy Movie. Many Disney Parade fans consider The World According to Goofy Parade to be one of the best daytime parades in the history of Disneyland. Surprisingly, the parade has never been duplicated in another Disney park. It is exclusive to Disneyland.
Huh.
Goofy is such a great, sweet part of the Disney lexicon. I'm like equally elated Disneyland created a parade based like.
Yeah, I don't know why I never knew that. To think it was a thing.
I didn't either. And I was just gonna say I'm equally elated about it and bummed that I never saw it. And 92 was the end of my run. Probably 90, probably even 90.
I'm gonna go look for that on YouTube now.
I did see it, and it is not without disappointment. Especially if you're a Goofy fan. Like, here's my Goofy fan childhood memory. Remember, they still have it. I still seen them. The Goofy ear, the baseball cap or trucker hat, whatever they're called these days, with the Goofy's teeth in the front. His
I remember that hat.
Ears.
Sure.
Man, I sported that thing like you wouldn't believe proudly as a maybe 13-year-old. I had that window of thinking it was amazing. So now when I see it, of course, it makes me smile.
Yeah.
1991, the Disney Afternoon Avenue exhibit area closes. Inspired by Disney Afternoon, a 2-hour package of animated television series primarily made up of DuckTales, Chip and Dale's Rescue Rangers, Tailspin, and Darkwing Duck that began in September 1990. These shows had a huge following, so Disney decided to incorporate the shows into Disneyland. Disney Plus. Disney Afternoon Avenue was a special Fantasyland promotion at Disneyland from March to November 91, taking over from Storybook Land to It's a Small World and the Videopolis Theater, of course, Fantasyland Theater. It was almost its own land where guests could meet the popular characters from their favorite shows. The adjacent Autopia, Fantasyland Autopia was called at the time, because until 99 there was a Fantasyland Autopia and a Tomorrowland Autopia.
Yep, there were two different ones, yeah.
And the Autopia on the Fantasyland side became the Rescue Rangers Raceway. And the motorboat cruise became the motorboat cruise to Gummy Glen.
Gummy Glen.
With plywood gummy bear characters making a magical GummiBerry Juice along the banks for the promotion. GummiBerry Juice returns. The Avenue had so much success that it showed that Disney had a market for an area based around their more popular cartoon characters. And David, get this, Mickey's Toontown was born and became a full land in 1993 as a result. Nods in Toontown include Chip and Dale's Treehouse and their fellow Rescue Ranger Gadget's Go Coaster. Fun fact.
Makes sense, yeah.
Wow, so cool how these things all tie together. The adventures of the Gummy Bear show came about when Michael Eisner's son returned from camp begging for the popular Gummy Bear candy. Recognizing a popular trend, Eisner ordered a Series 2 development based on the candy.
Wow.
Fun fact number 2, George Lucas and Steve Spielberg have cited that the timeless nature of the DuckTales characters and their adventures as a major influence on Raiders of the Lost Ark. Who knew?
What?
I know. Hey, it came right from them. And I read it on the internet, so it must be true.
It must be true.
And that segues David into this. Disney Plus launched 2 years ago this week. And I think it's a perfect segue for me to ask you, infiltration from television to parks is happening and in full swing. I mean, it is a real thing that we've hinted, kind of alluded to in the past in conversations and in topics, but I now fully believe that that is absolutely happening. Thoughts?
Mandalorian? Is that what we're talking about? Let's do this. What's going on?
Yeah, Mandalorian, just their entire library, whatever they can bring in. I mean, Mandalorian into Galaxy's Edge is obviously they're not going to miss the opportunity to get Grogu.
Yeah, streaming is it's not just the future; it's the present. And it would be ludicrous of them not to. If they're interested in keeping IPs in the park or making things in the park IPs, that's where IPs are being born now. New IPs are being born on Disney Plus, not in theaters, or at least not as much. You can get a lot more done on Disney Plus than you can in theaters these days. So I mean, yeah, definitely Mandalorian, WandaVision, all that stuff should be appearing in the parks. We saw WandaVision, and we saw what's the other one? The Loki show show up at Avengers Campus.
Not only that, we saw from Disney Plus Zombie Captain America.
Zombie Captain. That's right. From the What If series. Yeah. So clock's ticking, Disney. Clock's ticking on that Mandalorian.
It's happening, and that's the one they really got to get right. 1957, Goldman Sachs leads Disney's initial public offering on the New York Stock Exchange at a share price of, care to guess?
$12.
Great guess, $13.88. In the aftermath of losing Oswald, Disney and its chief animator of iWorks brought to life replacement Mickey Mouse. After a few silent films starring Mickey failed to sell, the team added synchronized sound and the legend of the famous mouse was born. And although Disney issued over-the-counter stock as Walt Disney Productions in 1940, it was not until November 12, 1957 that Goldman Sachs co-led the Disney IPO. The timing seemed right as Disney had opened its groundbreaking theme park Disneyland just 2 years earlier. Boy, do I wish it was $13.88 right now.
Yeah,
because I have a monthly withdrawals for years for Champ.
Oh yeah,
and, yeah. I mean, he doesn't know about it because his favorite character is Kylo Ren, so I don't want to tell him because you know what Kylo did to his dad. So I'm leaving it all to him. But it's $13.88. Boy, that's crazy to see it go from $13.88 to
Oh, I'm sure it split a few times along the way too.
Up and down, up and down. 1957. And 1998, David, this is fun. A Westward Ho Conestoga.
Oh.
I listened to this to find out how to say it properly, and I keep forgetting. Conestoga Wagon Fries food stand opens in Frontierland. An ode to the 1955 Conestoga Wagons Frontierland attraction where guests were transported on the trails also used by the stagecoaches. The Pasadena Independent ad in December of 55 said, "You will ride the Conestoga wagon in Frontierland, one of the most picturesque and vital vehicles in history. It was the Conestoga, not the covered wagon, that developed the West. The great wagons were first built in the Conestoga Valley of Pennsylvania with watertight bottoms that permitted safe crossing of rivers. You will also ride authentic stagecoaches, pack trains, and buckboards in this remarkable recreation of the Old West." In September 59, after 4 years, that attraction closed. 40 years later, the Conestoga wagons returned to Disneyland, not as an attraction, but as a fry stand. The
Just fries.
The Conestoga wagon theme land was sponsored by McDonald's and served McDonald's French fries. It opened in November 98 near the same spots guests originally boarded the ride in the 50s. It lasted 10 years. The canvas top that proclaimed Westward Ho was a nod to the old ride. And a fun fact, what representation still exists, Westward Ho lives on in Frontierland as the Westward Ho Trading Company.
Yep.
Last thing this week. In 1965, Walt Roy and the Florida governor publicly announced plans to build a new Disney theme park in Orlando. Governor Burns asked Walt, "I don't think you've mentioned the amount of money of the investment that would indicate the size of this project." Walt replied with a chuckle, "A heck of a lot. There was a time in my life when I didn't think there was that much money, but my big brother says we can do it. He's the money man." 6 years later, on October 1st, 1971, of course, Disney World welcomed their first guests. That was a Mailbag. Or no, gosh, I keep blending old with new.
Mailbag's coming up, Ronnie.
Mailbag is coming up, and have you eaten Conestoga fries?
Yes. I have.
I mean,
not a lot. I think once or twice, maybe.
I mean, 1998, and I was there for several years of that. I do remember McDonald's in the parks, I guess, but I don't recall actually going to the stand and eating it. But I saw the pictures, and it looked familiar.
Yeah.
Imagine that. I'm glad they're gone.
I remember wishing that they had a cheeseburger or a Big Mac.
Right. That's so funny. Mailbag.
All right, let's do it.
Cotton candy. Randy asks us, could Disneyland be built today? If Walt were born a century later, how different would the park be if no other park uses the style that he used? Is it possible?
I don't know if the question should be could rather than would. I mean, obviously they could build it, but who would build it? Because Walt was one of a kind. And if Walt were alive today, would he be of the same mindset as he was in 1955? I don't know. I will say this. Whoever is looking to build a theme park today, they're not building the Mark Twain, the Rivers of America. They're not building Main Street vehicles or Pirates of the Caribbean. That's just not how things are built today. So to answer that, I don't think they wouldn't build Disneyland, at least a lot of the parts that we love about Disneyland. The reason why we love Disneyland is some of those, the Mark Twain features, that kind of thing. You would get more Galaxy's Edge and Avengers Campus and Runaway Railway.
Yeah, I agree, because it's one of those things where if you want to get rich, they say, take somebody else's idea and make it better. In other words, you don't want to duplicate it. So if Disneyland already exists, that's why these other theme parks are not doing what Walt did and what the theme park is. But what they are is like mass production. It's just volume. It's just so the quality drops so much, and the amount of we keep saying it, TLC, the amount of intimacy that Walt put into it just lacks. It seems like everywhere else, and it seems like they don't have a money train to finance those sorts of things, where he was such a pioneer. He was able to kind of come at it with, like, right now trying to pitch to the world, just imagine big children and parents having fun together. Like, that kind of notion in today's world just seems like good luck getting financing for that.
It would take another one-of-a-kind, once-in-a-generation, once-in-a-multi-generation personality to even do something similar or like Disneyland. It wouldn't be like Disneyland, but it would be something different and unique, and as Walt was. It takes a person with a vision to do something like that, and I'm not sure even that's possible today because of the way money is handled today. It's all about committees and screenings and stuff like that, and it just doesn't
ROI.
Yeah, ROI. It's all about ROI. There are a few people who don't care about that. There are so few who don't care about that. Like the guy who runs Virgin, Branson.
Richard? No.
Yeah, that's right. I think
Richard Branson.
He doesn't care.
No,
but he's more interested in other things. He's doing other things. He's making balloons and flying to space and things like that. Right. But it would take somebody like that, or maybe Elon Musk, if he was interested. Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I was about to say, because Disneyland was so groundbreaking, there had been fairs and there had been other things. So this is outside the box thinking to do something that the world had never seen before. So you mentioned Elon Musk. What I was going to say is that as it is, that sort of a park, or that sort of a theme park wouldn't happen again, because it would be something so groundbreaking and transcendent that's different, that along the lines of an Elon Musk, or along just something that we can't even visualize at the moment.
Yeah. No, it takes somebody who doesn't care about return, because they just want to build whatever it is that their vision is, and that's just hard to find these days.
Yeah, you need backing in today's world. Nobody does anything on their own, and it took ABC to build Walt's Park.
Yeah.
Thank you for the question. Josh asks us, with the opening of the new Christmas shop, what do you think will be the old Fantasyland Christmas shop?
Well, my money's on nothing, which is often where my money goes. My money's on nothing. Maybe extended Peter Pan space, which would be nothing, I guess, is just more space. One thing I know it's not going to be is another heraldry shop. That's not coming back. So if it stays a gift shop, then it's going to be something kind of like what they did over there with the next door to Pinocchio, that gift shop.
Right, exactly.
Something along that lines, which is kind of depressing because That place sucks.
Yeah, I mean, what are they going to do? They're taking out a quote unquote revenue spot and replacing it with Q. No, they're just. I feel
Well,
like,
Pirates needs it, and some people are saying Lightning Lane. It takes more than that for Lightning Lane. Pirates is not getting Lightning Lane, guys. Pirates is not getting. I keep saying Pirates. Peter Pan is not getting Lightning Lane.
oh,
Yeah, there's no
Neither
place
one.
to put. Well, because there's barely enough room for one queue. You can't make another queue. You know.
right. Yeah, you're totally right. It would probably make sense and make that queue more, tolerable.
Yeah, just more space. I mean, but even matter? I don't think so.
Well,
think
I
it
don't
would
know,
even
but
matter.
I feel like that requires more work than them just saying, okay, we're not selling Christmas stuff anymore, but now we're selling this, and they're just going to restock the shelves with something else.
It's gonna be, my money is on something closer to. Well, I said nothing. If it's not that, if it is something, it's gonna be something closer to what they do over there by Pinocchio,
Right.
which is depressing.
Steve asks us, David, do you collect Disney merchandise or memorabilia? And if so, what are your favorite pieces?
I'm going to defer to you because I know you do, but I will say no, I don't collect a lot. The only thing that I really like are the park ride specific Funkos. You know, like the Funko Jungle Cruise boat, that kind of thing. The Funko Matterhorn with the Yeti in it. I have a couple of those. I like park specific stuff, but otherwise I don't collect pins or anything like that. But what about you?
What's funny is I keep everything. But I don't know that I collect things. When I think of collection, I think of like baseball cards. You're trying to get a set, and
Right.
that's why I don't touch Funko. Although I like your idea with Funko is park specific. That has
Right, that's it.
That has me interested because I don't like games. This is what I say about the pins. I don't like games I can't win, and you are not.
Oh,
winning
there's
the
no
pin
finish
game.
line to pins. I would tell everybody right now, if you're listening, stop collecting pins. Just stop it.
Right,
Because
I know.
it's a rabbit hole you'll never get out of.
That is true.
There's no finish line.
I get hit up on Twitter from people that have heard the show. They're saying, I'm going to see you in the parks and I'm going to trade pins with you. And by the way, I always say,
No, you're
do
not.
it. Well, no, I say do it 100%. I'm happy to. I will take it. And then it will go in my curio cabinet because it will now be a memory. And I care more about the memory than the pin, but that pin will trigger that memory.
Yeah.
But to that point, I guess I collect, if I want to say I collect anything, because I have lots and lots and lots of coffee mugs, and I have lots and lots and lots of plushes, Disney plushes.
Yeah.
And there's an end game to the plushes because they do keep coming out with new ones, that's for sure, but they only have like 70 or 80 right now, and I have
Right.
probably 60 to 70 of them. It was just something I started doing because I wanted to add fun energy to kind of like grandma's house, I wanted to add, I had a kid, I wanted to add something that was more than, football. So I went that route and now I have
All right.
lots. David, let's see. Knowing that there is never a bad time to visit Disneyland, when do you think is the best time to visit, taking into consideration holidays, decorations, weather, food, festivals, and crowd levels? Nancy DeShane asks us.
Well, it's a whole new world out there, Ron. Disneyland today is not Disneyland from 2019.
That is so funny.
It is not the same. If you were to ask me this question 2 years ago, I would say, I don't know, like the first 2 weeks of summer were historically very slow. Before all the schools let out, it was very quiet. The first 2 weeks. That there's a little soft spot sometimes in between Halloween and the Christmas season, like right now. It's a little bit of a soft spot right now. But otherwise, no. But it doesn't matter because I have no idea. With limited capacity and reservations, Disney is winning that battle in terms of spreading everything out. There's no way to predict. I have no historical data to rely on because everything changes. Everything changed when they reopened, earlier this year. We cannot rely on historical patterns anymore.
That is absolutely correct, and that's funny because that's what I was going to say is like, who knows anymore because if they're supposedly plateauing and leveling.
Yeah, dude, I don't know.
I was going to answer more in the what to avoid days because
Sure.
Like the grad nights, not that there's anything wrong with them whatsoever, it's just that the parks are much more crowded.
I don't enjoy going to the park on grad nights.
Yeah, those grad night days are just filled and it's fun and it's cool that they do those type of things, but when there's special events that just be aware of the special events,
Yeah.
whatever they may be, because those are the days that I tend to avoid, specifically the grad nights, because it's definitely ramped up and large groups of people in queues and stuff, and so I avoid those. But like February, those time of year is typically slower. But I always kind of defer to, like, the fall is, like, when you start getting into September, October, Disneyland is awesome because I like the transition. Like, it's still subtle. It's not quite Christmas yet, but when it starts to go into the holiday season a little bit, that fall, that Halloween makeover is just really, really enjoyable.
No, I agree. I want to carry on or piggyback on what you're suggesting there. A couple things, myths to debunk, as it were. The week or two after Christmas, people think nobody goes to the park. That is not true. Very busy on the week after Christmas and the first week of January. Very busy. Very busy on Thanksgiving. Very busy on Christmas Day. Very busy on Super Sunday. Basically, any day you think people choosing to stay home instead of going to the park is the opposite. People are choosing to go to the park instead of staying home. Those days are busy.
Yes, you're right. And it's so funny because the 2 weeks after Christmas is because people can still see the attractions when they weren't able, because they're blocked out for 2 weeks.
And they're still on vacation.
And Super Bowl Sunday is always a myth that everybody always tells me about as well. And that's funny.
I tried it out once. I said, nah, I'm good. I'm going to watch the Super Bowl.
Yeah. 5 things Disneyland. David.
Okay.
Favorite 5 dark rides at the Disneyland Resort. Timothy Bethune asks us.
Ground rules. What's a dark ride?
Oh my gosh, dude, sometimes we share a brain. Because what I was going to say, like, honestly, since you said it, the segue is the dark is interpreted very, very, very differently by different people, and the defining rules are. But not only that, he asked us top 5 dark rides at Disneyland, and I changed it to favorite. And top and favorite or best and those type of things, those 3 things mean different things to me. So I don't know how to answer them, and I don't know. You know what I mean? It's just a tricky thing. So dark rides defined. I specifically made my own rules for this.
Okay, I'll follow your rules, whatever they are. Go for it.
Well, my rules was I purposely left thrill out. I didn't want. I think it should be a story. I think there should be a narrative that's taking you through a story. And I removed thrill because, to your point, there's a lot of things on here that they're dark inside. For example,
I mean,
Space Mountain. It doesn't get any darker than Space Mountain. It does not.
Oh no. Space Mountain's not a dark ride to me. That's a roller coaster.
Well, no, me either. But that's what I'm saying. If you say dark ride, what's darker than Space Mountain? But
no, nothing. You're right. But that's
I agree. This is fun because of that. We were thinking the exact same thing. Because you know what I was thinking? I was thinking, oh God, David's gonna tell me where I'm wrong because he knows what a dark ride is in my interpretation.
No, I have my own idea. I mean. So that's the thing. If I tell you what I think is a dark ride, that's going to give away my.
I already have my 5 written because I refuse to budge because I wanted. I also, I came up with my own way to do it, and that was specifically to say it at the top. I removed thrill from it, and then that left me the 5 that I wanted.
Okay, then I'm going to take back what I said about following your guidance, and I'm just going to use my own guidance then, and then maybe that's a conversation.
What is your definition?
You'll find out when I get to my when I get to my tops. But I'll start with Mr. Toad's at number 5. Perhaps the most underrated attraction in the whole park. I love Mr. Toad's. Mr. Toad's is definitely a dark ride. Mr. Toad's makes me happy every single time I ride it. It is the OGest of OG attractions. They were building that. That's one of the first things they started building before they, off stage, back in Burbank. They were building Toad vehicles before the park was even a thing. So Mr. Toad's is my number 5.
Excellent choice. And I will say this, even with my rules, my number 5 was the hardest because I think things deserve mention.
Yep.
So without going the thrill ride route. That was also how I narrowed it down, was just to get rid of the word thrill, or the thrill feeling. I'm going with, believe it or not, Snow White's Enchanted Wish. And
The new one, really?
And I'm saying the new one because, so I had been on it several times, and I would say maybe the last month, last 6 weeks maybe, I haven't been on it. This past Saturday, I went on it again, and sometimes, you know, when you see the same thing over and over and over again, maybe you don't appreciate it. Well, this felt like, I was like, you know what? This ride is really beautiful. It is. The colors, the there is vibrant colors throughout. It's taking you through a story, and it really hit me that the improvement was amazing. It really, not that I dislike the other one. I love the other one, but they really brought this one to life with the vibrant colors and the energies and going through it. I'm like, you know what? This is a really well done, and it deserves mention. So I wasn't going to.
They did. It was very well done. Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
That's my 5.
Okay, number 4. Well, we'll stay in Fantasyland then. Oh no, wait. Am I going to Fantasyland now? No, I think, yeah. Hang on.
Well, don't worry. I'll tell you what my tossle with number 5 was when we're done. And I'm sure you have the same struggle.
Yeah, I'm gonna say Small World for number 4. I'm gonna call Small World a dark ride. If only because of its historical significance. And that's the reason why I ride Small World anytime, is just because I want to connect with a very important piece of Disneyland history. It's not my favorite ride by any stretch. It's not the best dark ride, to use your, delineation about the top or best or whatever. Like, right. It's important. Small World is important. And I just, from time to time, I have to pay my respect, and that's what I would do here. Number 4 on my list is Small World.
I love It's a Small World. I really, really do. And I love it for all the reasons that you mentioned. And additionally, we were going to go on it this weekend, and it was down, obviously, for the holiday layover. But it's, me and Champ were talking about it. He loves it to death. But I love the fact that in the summer, it's a long ride, so you get rest. And I always joke. I don't sit down in Disneyland unless I'm eating or on an attraction. I refuse to sit. And the air conditioning within that ride and the story, it's a pleasurable rest.
Yeah, it is.
And it's a good call, and it almost made my list. I had 1, 2, 3, 4. I had 5 to choose from for my number 5th that I was really tossing back and forth,
wow.
And that was one of them. My number 4, Peter Pan's Flight, and it's true vintage dark ride. I like it because you're suspended. I mean, I like the ride.
That's cool. Yeah,
it's great. It's just a nice ride experience to be suspended and to go from the dream world over Neverland, or the bedrooms over Neverland. For a dark ride, you don't really think about being suspended for a dark ride until you actually think about, wait a second, Peter Pan's the ultimate dark ride, or amongst the ultimate dark rides, and you're suspended. That's pretty cool. So it is Peter Pan.
All right. So I'm going to go number 3. This is where we're going to get into the definition of dark ride. We're on number 3, right? Yeah, number 3.
Yes, sir.
Radiator Springs Racers is a dark ride to me. And Radiator Springs Racers is one of the best rides in the world. So it has to be on my list. And we could talk about the definition of dark ride, but if Walt were to build rides today, and he said build a dark ride, he would say, yeah, build Radiator Springs, because that is what it is, a dark ride. It's just a big one. That's all. It's just a super big, super elaborate dark ride, and it's great. It perfectly tells the story of the Cars franchise, and it's got a little bit of thrills. I guess you got the race at the end, but I mean, I don't. To your definition about not being a thrill ride, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with including that on my list.
I agree with every single thing that you just said. It is absolutely 100% a dark ride. And the only reason that somebody would argue that it's not a dark ride is because there's the outside race at the end.
But Alice has an outside.
It's telling a story. It's taking you from room to room, telling a story. It's just a
big dark ride.
It is, and I do agree. But because I wanted I had there's a lot more dark rides than you think there are actually
If
when you start
follow
breaking
those,
it, when you start breaking it down. So I had to remove Thrill so that way I could be comfortable with my selections. My number 3, Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, and I agree with every single thing that you said. And furthermore, and I know we've talked about it to death, either on Fresh Baked proper or maybe on this. I just know that I've had the conversation before. The little elements. One of the rooms is an entirely different temperature. There's the train effect. I mean, in some ways it's a carnival ride. In other ways, they've just done it so well and so creative. And this thing is, 1955 attraction, like you said, and it has so many gags, if you will, that are just really, really cool. And it is as nostalgic and as Disneyland as it comes in my mind.
Mr. Toad's I cannot believe it's still holding up, almost 70 years later, or however long this park has been open. I just cannot believe that ride still exists today, Ronnie. That ride, Mr. Toad, still exists. It is the Up House. Okay, it's that old dude's house in the middle of all these big buildings. You still got this little precious Mr. Toad. It's so wonderful.
And every second that it's like a teeter-totter thing. Or maybe that's not the right word, but every second that it lasts, it grows stronger.
Yes,
it is not going. It is becoming more untouchable as
it's so
days
true.
pass.
It's so true. They try to take it and put Winnie Pooh in its place. There will be a fight. You try to take Mr. Toad's out of my Fantasyland, I will fight you. I will chain myself to the vehicle out front. You cannot. You cannot.
So true.
Having said that, my number 2 is Rise of the Resistance. Because, that's a dark ride to me, too. It's the next iteration. It is the next level in the history and the evolution of the dark ride experience. Rise of the Resistance is a dark ride to me. And they haven't done it better, ever. And they may not do better than that, ever.
That is true, and I refuse to put Rise of Resistance on there, but not everything you said is absolutely true. It is, I feel like on these lists that has to do with attractions, unless we're bringing up water or something, Rise of Resistance is always going to be number 1 because it's the best that's ever been done. Yeah. I consider it, I don't even call it, or I have also stubbornly refused to call it an attraction because if ever there was an experience, it's Rise of the Resistance.
Yeah, really, it is its own thing, kind of.
And not only that, but the story is told by you walking through it. I'm not comfortably sitting, like you don't even get, even though the part that at the very end is very much a dark ride, and I know Disney considers it a dark ride, but isn't it interesting that so much of that attraction, like you're in that thing doing so much for so long before you actually sit down and go for a ride.
I know, right?
It's incredible. Yeah. It's incredible.
Waiting in line as an experience is so well done.
I would not argue that I do also believe it's a dark ride, but I refused to put it on the list because I am going with number 2, Haunted Mansion.
I hadn't considered that.
Really? Well, we're getting to the point where I am doing different ride vehicles for my dark rides. So Peter Pan, the floating. I know Toads and Snow White. I'm sorry, and Snow White are the same. And then, of course, Haunted Mansion. Of course, the Doom Buggy.
That's
the
true.
story being told going through there, it's just fun. And different rooms, different gags, different sites, different everything.
You ain't got to sell me on how awesome Haunted Mansion is.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. And it's also vintage. Like when it comes to these type of things, it's like I love, as you do, like just the old original storytelling essence I love.
For some reason, well, now I kind of have a guess what your one might be, but I treated that as a separate thing, kind of like how you're treating Rise as a separate thing. It's its own entity. Haunted Mansion exists on its own, in my opinion. So for number 1, because I am, I love history. I love paying respect. I love, even though it may not be the best, it's still number 1 for me. That's Peter Pan. Peter Pan's Flight is, if you're going to use the strictest definition of dark ride, then that is the number 1. If you're going to stick with those Fantasyland old school dark rides as they were constructed in '55. Yeah. Peter Pan's best, man. Peter Pan is the best. It's the most highly concentrated magic that fly over London, and the Pirate Bay or whatever, skull, I forget what they call it, but it is the most highly concentrated. That 30 seconds is one of the greatest moments you're going to ever have in a Disney park ever. And it's not the longest ride. I know the payoff is not as great as the 90-minute wait you get sometimes or the 45-minute wait, but for me it is. The payoff is worth it. It's magic. It's pure magic. Plus, the technology, as you mentioned. If you're gonna strict my definition to traditional dark rides, which I do, in a sense I want to do that because I'm, like I said, I love history and I want to pay my respect. Peter Pan's my number one.
Good choice. Made my list as well. So did Toads. Where did we overlap? Those two we overlap. Yep. My number one is, often I'm asked what my favorite Disneyland ride is, and often I try to think of there's so many that I love. I just can never just go away from, no matter what age I first entered the park till now, I still love Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah, of course.
Pirates is just great, and it's a fun story. And even though there's so many rumors about what the story actually is, but it's fun and I love it. And again, it's a different ride vehicle. So, and that's why It's a Small World almost made my list as well, because I wanted that little kind of floating through there.
If I'm going to include Small World, I should include Pirates. But for some reason, again, like Haunted Mansion, it stands on its own.
It does. It really does. But that's what makes these. It's a very interesting question, because it's not as black and white as you think. Dark ride, and you're like, wait a second, because then there's other things like one I was going to mention that almost made my list that I absolutely love, but I removed it for one reason only, because there's a thrill drop at the end. Splash Mountain. I absolutely love Splash Mountain. I love it. It's such a great ride. Indiana Jones.
Indy was a variable for me. Indiana Jones could be considered a dark ride, but too much thrills, too much on that one, I think.
Yeah, I totally agree.
But it's funny, Pirates, if you're it's the best ride. Pirates is the best ride.
So.
Like, if you're just to make a big pile of rides, Pirates is on top, right? So if it's a dark ride, then it's the best dark ride. I totally get it.
All right, I agree. That's so funny. I stuck to traditional Disneyland. And I had the boat, or the floaty Pirates, the flying Peters, the cars. Yeah. I wanted it all. But any closing thoughts on today's discussion, David?
I sure hope they get Toontown right. I want more, Ronnie. I want more from Toontown. Give me more, please. I sure hope they don't screw this up.
I am cautiously optimistic. I really think they must have something in mind. They're not going to give us this big shiny thing and then nothing, great or side dishes, right?
It sure would be a letdown.
It will be a letdown, and I don't just mean new Toontown mountains. I mean a lot more.
Yeah, no kidding.
So that's a wrap, David. Right. That brings us to the end of today's show. Thanks for joining us for a riveting conversation about Toontown, McDonald's French fries, the world according to Goofy, magical GummiBerry Juice, and, of course, our favorite dark rides. Hopefully it was insightful and fun and entertaining for you, as well as it obviously was for us. So thanks for making us part of your day, and please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. And we're going to meet you here next week for a discussion on Happy Thanksgiving gratitude in the parks as the Winter Wonderland holiday season officially begins, and many other fun things. I might have just made all of that up, but tune in next week to find out. Until then,
FreshBaked.
Yes, I feel like that was perfect. That was perfect. You know why? Your part was perfect. Because I helped you. I finally gave you something to work with.
I could feel the lead coming.
I was building. It was crescendoing. Putting it on a tee.
We teed it up.
Teed it up.
All right, let me